SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
In need of a new roof? Look no further than Mike's Economy Roofing. Locally owned and operated, Mike's Economy Roofing is your go-to for quality shingle roof replacements. Don't wait. Call Mike today at 601-757-6748 for that complete new roof you've been dreaming of.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But
Good
now,
morning.
man,
Hope you didn't wash away last night. Thanks for being with us on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. I'm just going to be honest with you. I slept like a champ last night. It was raining lightly when I went to bed. Apparently, it rained a lot harder, and it blew because there are branches and leaves down all over my yard. Apparently, the power went out at some point because my computer was shut off and the settings on my camera were all off and everything. But now it's just as calm as it can be. And that's the case over much of the state of the Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. Love for you to be part of the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Every sports fan can tell you fast speeds win games. It's why C Spire brings your fiber home internet. Nationwide 5G wireless and IT solutions that move as fast as your business. Learn more at cspire.com. C Spire, inspired by you. Use that C Spire text line if you don't mind. If you have any damage, any issues related to the weather that moved through the state of Mississippi last night. North Mississippi got rain. South Mississippi looked like it got, I don't know, a biblical event. Nearly 5 inches of rain in Brookhaven. Crystal Springs, you came in at 4.5. Macomb, 5.5 inches of rain. Almost 2 in Kosciuszko, about 2 in Philadelphia, nearly 3 in Bay Springs. I mean, the southern part of the state of Mississippi, nearly 4 inches in Columbia. Got drenched last night. Lance, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, it was some kind of a storm that came through. It kind of toyed with it most of the day, and then all of a sudden it decided, and it came. And I'm going to tell you what, I was telling you before, I don't know how many inches of rain came down in my area, but it was multiple. And it just didn't stop. It kept coming, lightning and everything. But fortunately, the roads that I saw this morning were fairly clear around here, so that's always good because had a super storm. But as far as, I was telling you, I came in the door, and there's a little stray pup out there that somebody is going to be looking for this morning. So if you're missing a dog over here off of County Line in Ridgewood, come up to the Farm Bureau building because they have a beautiful little puppy up here. I mean, it's full grown, but not a big dog. Has a dog collar on it, light blue little thing. So, yeah. But, yeah, you could tell it was rough everywhere. And I'm just happy that we haven't heard of terrible news such as tornadoes and stuff.
Yeah, because this was one of those storms that when it was on the way in, you had the tornado watches that were popping and the warnings of flash flooding. At this point, other than maybe a stray shower here and there, you got a little bit of rain in extreme North Mississippi. At this point, the only parts of the state that are still getting rain, southeast Mississippi, from Meridian south down to Pascagoula back to the west to Gulfport, and then back to the northwest to Hattiesburg. But that rain is moving out, and hopefully before too much longer it's going to be gone. It's going to kind of linger till mid-morning on the coast. But we hope you're good this morning. We hope that everything has worked out just fine, and you don't have any damage. And if you have power out, that it'll be back on before too long. How about the rest of the day? Tupelo, you got showers this morning, cloudiness in the afternoon, high of 74. Wind's going to be breezy out of the southeast at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tutwiler over in the greater Clarksdale metro area. Cloudy, slight chance of a rain shower. You're going to be up to 77 today with south wind at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Our good friends in Pelahatchie dealing with cloudy skies, a slight chance of a rain shower, high of 77. And in Perkinston, got those scattered thunderstorms this morning, variable clouds during the afternoon, more showers at times. You're going to be at 75 degrees. Winds out of the south-southeast. Chance of rain about 60%. And then you've got that possibility of some heavy rainfall locally throughout the day. Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky was born on this day in 1840. That's your buddy, right?
Oh, yeah, I love I always mess it up when I try to say it early in the morning like that.
Just drop the T.
Yeah, Tchaikovsky. There's so many great, classical music folks out there that, when I was young.
Are you one of them?
No, I like listening to it, but as far as playing any of it, I'm terrible. Pick up a guitar and try to play classical, no way. But I absolutely love it. It's so complex, too. To study some of the classics, it's not as easy as it sounds when it comes across. It's very complex stuff, but he's a great one. Yeah. 1812 Overture, the Nutcracker, Swan Lake, composer of all of those, Russian born in 1840. Edwin Land was born on this day in 1909, American inventor of instant photography and co-founder of the Polaroid Corporation, born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. This day in 1933, Johnny Unitas played in the National Football League for 18 seasons, primarily with the Colts. Nicknamed Johnny U, the Golden Arm. He was considered the prototype of modern-era marquee franchise-type quarterbacks and is regarded as one of the greatest NFL players of all time. But it didn't really start out that way for Johnny U. Dreamed about being part of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, but when he tried out for the team, Frank Leahy said he was just too skinny and he would get murdered if he was put on the field. Now, others say that Leahy was actually not there for the workout. It was an assistant coach that passed on him because he thought the team's fans couldn't accept a 135-pound quarterback. Later, a scholarship offer from the University of Pittsburgh was withdrawn. And ultimately, he went to Louisville. Louisville was in bad shape at the time, and his college career was not great. A lot of people with buyer's remorse on Johnny Unitas from his college days to one of the all-time greats. Tim Russert, remember him? The original host of Meet the Press on NBC, born in Buffalo, New York on this day in 1950, passed away in 2008. And at just 27 years old, Mr. Beast was born on this day in 1998. James Stephen Jimmy Donaldson, known as Mr. Beast, an American YouTuber. You're familiar with Mr. Beast, aren't you? Oh, yeah. He's a legend.
Yeah. Known for his fast-paced, high-production YouTube videos where he often hosts elaborate challenges and philanthropic efforts. Nobody has more subscribers to their YouTube page than does Mr. Beast. 390 million.
Can't even comprehend that. I got one follower is me.
That is every single person in the United States and almost every single person in Canada. There's your equivalent. Most subscribers on YouTube, third most followed creator on TikTok. He's got 115 million followers on TikTok. In 2023, Time named him one of the world's 100 most influential people. He ranked first on the Forbes list for the highest paid YouTube creator in 2024. Estimated net worth of $550 million. It could be a whole lot more but he gives a ton of it away. Estimates suggest that he generates between $600 and $700 million annually through social media, but he reinvests a large portion of that into his businesses and his philanthropic efforts.
Dude's a genius.
He is. He certainly is. He's entertaining, too.
No, he comes up with cool stuff. Can you imagine the pressure?
Love him.
Yeah, can you imagine the pressure you're under every day to you had $500 million rolling in and a few 100 million subscribers? Kind of, what are we going to do today?
Jeff in Grenada says, and then there is me. I have never heard of Mr. Beast in my life.
You've watched his stuff. You don't know you have, but
well, maybe not.
Well, I mean,
Jeff might not be a big YouTube guy.
Yeah, but I mean, it'll pop up. I'm saying you're gonna caught something sometime over the last couple of years. You may not, maybe not have known it though.
That's why we do the birthdays. It's not just to kill time. It's like, hey, we got some interesting facts. Can we learn something this morning? See, Jeff, you just learned something this morning. Tchaikovsky poured his soul into all of his music. That's why it was so good. He lived a life of misery, as it was against the law, punishable by death, to be gay in Russia. Okay. Thanks for the note. Good to be with you. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're going with the soothing Tchaikovsky this morning.
See, I got you. You did the same thing I did. I butchered the name. But I got to do a little soothing piano concerto, number 1.
We're going to get the 1812 Overture at some point also.
Yeah, I got them all lined up over here.
Very good. Very good. Hey, heads up out there. If you sleep through bad weather, sometimes you don't realize you got bad weather. Getting texts from people that live in my neighborhood like, hey, is your power out? We've got this weird dynamic, Lance, in our neighborhood. Front half of the neighborhood is city power. Back half of the neighborhood is with Northeast power.
Mm-hmm.
City power, where we are, is out. Northeast power, thankfully, where Mornings with Richard Cross originates, is not. We're going strong. So
I was a little worried this morning.
Hang in there.
Getting here, you never know with so much technology.
Yeah.
I didn't see your screen open. I'm like, oh goodness. But then you came on perfect timing. But it was a lightning storm. Anytime you have that, I come in just worried. I mean, to be honest with you, I come in like, oh my God, what is it going to be today? And it was perfect. Whatever happened, it didn't happen here. So that's good. Great. Yeah.
That's good. On this day in 1867, Swedish chemist Alfred Nobel patents dynamite in England. First of 3 patents that he would receive for the explosive material. Incidentally, he is my son's favorite inventor of all time.
Yeah. Is there a reason why?
He loves to burn stuff. He loves the idea of stuff blowing up.
I don't blame him. It is a cool sight.
And he is all boy. If he can shoot it or burn it, then he is all good. Nobel was an inventor, engineer, and businessman, known for inventing dynamite as well as having bequeathed his fortune to establish the Nobel Prizes, including the Nobel Peace Prize, which is, an interesting dynamic. Invented dynamite, Nobel Peace Prize, there you go. And several other important contributions to science. 355 patents during his life. On this day in 1941, Glenn Miller recorded Chattanooga Choo Choo for RCA. It became the first record ever to be designated as a gold record. This day in 1945, Branch Rickey announced formation of the U.S. League. In early 1945, anticipating the integration of black players into Major League Baseball, Rickey, along with Gus Greenlee, who was the owner of the Pittsburgh Crawfords, created the USL as a method to scout black players specifically to break the color line. Rickey may have had alternate intentions with this, as this was his plan to get Jackie Robinson, instrumental in breaking MLB's color barrier, signing black player Jackie Robinson, created the framework for the modern minor league farm system, encouraged the major leagues to add new teams through his involvement in the proposed Continental League, introduced the batting helmet.
That's a pretty big deal there.
Posthumously inducted into the Hall of Fame 1967. Yeah, big deal. The batting helmet.
Well, I mean, what would you have put your ice cream in? You know, those little baseball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if they would have never come up with that, the batting helmet, I mean, kids would have.
A little drizzle of hot fudge, some peanuts, and a cherry on top.
Oh, man, yeah. At the ballpark, too. I mean, it just works together.
This day in 1959, they held Roy Campanella Night in Los Angeles. Largest baseball crowd ever. 93,103 at the LA Coliseum to see the Yankees beat the Dodgers 6-2 in an exhibition game on Roy Campanella Night. Denver, the first United States to decriminalize psilocybin. Psilocybin. Yeah, sorry, I went the wrong. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Magic
selective.
mushrooms, easier said.
There you go.
That was in 2019. And a year ago today, Vlad Putin, not Guerrero or Vlad, and
the Impaler.
Yeah, Vladimir Putin sworn in for his fifth six-year term as Russian president at the Grand Kremlin Palace in Moscow. It was in a ceremony that was boycotted by many world leaders.
Well, you wonder how that goes after like the fifth term, and you've pretty much appointed yourself. You know, these two. I mean, you just walk in the door and say, "All right, guys, line it up. Let's get the pictures lined up. Let's go."
I was thinking about this reading through. I was like, remember that time when Dmitry Medvedev was president of Russia?
Yeah, briefly.
One term.
Like, yeah, let me sit in here for you for a minute, keep the seat warm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that didn't last long.
Well, he was president, but didn't he make Putin prime minister while he was president?
Yeah, he was. There was a it
and
was
then
a
Putin
shadow
was like,
government.
that's enough of this prime minister stuff. You're out, kid. I'll take it back over.
And Putin's something now.
Yeah.
But yeah, 5 terms, and he's probably still using the same driver's license, same pick from like 20 years ago.
Great note here on the C Spire text line. Story goes that Alfred Nobel's obituary was published accidentally, and that led him to examine his life and then sparked the inspiration for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow.
Self-reflection.
When you see your name in the paper, in the obituary, and gives you a little self-reflection.
I mean, at least he didn't get mad and go blow the office up with the dynamite that he had invented.
Yeah, it was very inspiring to him, apparently.
How about this? Scientists with MDEQ, that's the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, have confirmed, this is 2 weeks in a row, Lance, and we've got a fossil story in Mississippi.
The first one was, it
was sea dragon last week in Oktibbeha County. We got a Harrison County today. Confirmed fossil fragments from a Colombian mammoth were found along the state's Gulf Coast, marking the first discovery of its kind in the region. Cole Moody, Gulf Coast resident, located and recovered 2 different parts of the mammoth's tooth in the low tide waters of Harrison County 2 weekends ago. Per state officials, this will allow researchers to get a better look at the creatures that roamed Mississippi prior to human documentation. Now, before we get into like the dates and what scientists believe in all of these things, I'm just going to tell you that I don't have an answer for like the biblical timeline that we go with and creation and the science timeline and fossils. When we start talking about 20,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, 2 million years ago, etc., I have trouble. I'm not saying that there couldn't have just been a great big window between creation and when God created man. But I'm not smart enough to make all of that make sense in my head. So I'm just going to give you what the numbers are from the story and do with it as you wish, because it's really fascinating from a scientific discovery standpoint. Before the mammoth's fossilized remains were found, geologists believed large mammals, such as herds of horses, giant bison, saber-toothed cats, American lion, giant ground sloths, and elephant relatives, such as mastodons, almost exclusively occupy the Lost World. Ice Age hunters, Paleo-Indians, that is, are said to have been the first people to ever call Mississippi, what is currently Mississippi, home. And they would have found a bounty of game on this land now buried beneath the Gulf waters. Which, by the way, is kind of cool historically, considering that there's a bounty of game in Mississippi now. Evidence from these long-lost Ice Age coastal lands comes largely from fossils and artifacts better preserved and discovered in other places along the Gulf, particularly Florida and Texas. Mississippi was believed to have been like its peers in Florida and Texas until this discovery. And the thought is that during the last ice age, the sea was a whole lot lower, like 400 feet lower. And so Mississippi as a state was a whole lot bigger as a state as it exists today.
We can claim it back then, though.
Was a lot bigger, and what is now, at least in part, the Gulf of America, was actually a fertile grassland. Really fascinating. MDEQ says this exciting find is extremely significant because mammoths are grazers. They inhabit specifically grassland environments. This is unlike their cousins, the mastodon, who are browsers and can inhabit a wide variety of environments. DJ and Summit, how much money can one get for these fossils? DJ, it's a reasonable question.
Yeah, and one of the two, I'd take a stab at selling one of those and see what you could get. I'm sure that would be a hefty little price tag you could get off of a mammoth tooth.
Yeah, I mean, if you find a Colombian mammoth tooth, is there like a market where the museum will pay you for it, or DEQ
yeah, that's what I was
pay
thinking.
You for it?
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
Or are they like, sorry, you are lawfully required to hand this over? I don't know the answer to that. Got some more news headlines and some sports headlines when we come back. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. Time to wake up.
Time to shine! Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Somebody told me when I first got to Nashville, oh, you finally got it made. Old Hank made.
Oh man, is this from somebody's personal collection? We got fossils coming in, a mastodon tooth from Bolivar County on the Mississippi River. Find there. That mastodon tooth is as big as his hand.
Yeah.
Good gracious.
So the sloth lower jaw. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff, you know, I love this stuff, and especially in the Delta. You know, everything's so flat, and you can see those little burial mounds, and if there's ever anything buried, you know, you can see it a mile off. But finding stuff like that, you know, in the Delta, which there's such a great history geologically. I mean, if it's just one of the stranger places, you got that big alluvian ridge. I can imagine if you dig into that thing, you would find all kind of stuff. You know, like I told you about that place up in Tupelo, outside of Tupelo, one of the lakes up there. You can just find huge fossils everywhere, just on top of the ground. It's amazing. I mean, prehistoric stuff, long time ago stuff.
Yeah. Brian and Enid sends us a picture from outside the Home Depot in Oxford this morning. Tree down, at least one in the area. Yeah, apparently we had some big wind in North Mississippi last night.
And Jim, we find oyster shells in North Mississippi. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And the big ones, too. I'm talking like the million year ago when her, if we want to get into the time frame Richard was referring to there. Not quite sure how old that stuff is, but it's old.
Richard, did we get the driver's permit?
Yes, I didn't want to ask. Yeah, I didn't want to ask this morning.
Yes, we did. We got there. The lady that helped my daughter yesterday afternoon was one of the kindest people we have ever encountered in any scenario. So nice, so efficient at her job. And yes, I'm talking about somebody that works at the DMV, 100%. She was outstanding. And baby girl passed the driver's permit test on her first go. She said she only missed 2 questions on it, so I'm proud of that. And then we jumped in the car and off she drove with me riding shotgun.
Were you white knuckling?
No, I mean we've practiced a good bit, but it's not like when we practice, it's been like, hey, let's go around the neighborhood, or hey, we'll drive out toward the lake because there's not a lot of traffic. And she was like, I don't know how I feel about getting on the highway. And I was like, I don't really know how I feel about that either. So let's kind of meander our way. And it was all good. There was one moment that caused me to raise my voice. And I'm trying to be really, really calm about, like, as I give instruction, I don't want it to do it in a way where she's like, Dad, stop yelling at me. Like, makes it uncomfortable all the way around. So, Oxford's got a bunch of roundabouts. We were coming from the driver's license place, so we went across Highway 6 and then kind of around the back. I don't even know what the road's named. It's a relatively new road that kind of dumps into behind Oxford High School and turns into Sisk. And so we had gone through a couple of roundabouts, working our way through there, and she had done well, but both times she had kind of not looked to her left. I mean, I was. It was clear. I wasn't that worried about it, but I was like, hey, babe, the deal with roundabouts is you have to yield going in, but once you're into the roundabout, you have the right-of-way. But to figure out if you have to yield going in or not, you got to look to the left and see if anything's coming. Okay, yes, sir. The third roundabout, and I saw that we had enough room to get in. We got into that thing, and the voice and the blood pressure went up a little bit because there were consecutive tractors that were coming through the roundabout that, like bush hog on this, like big John Deere tractors pulling bush hogs. And I was like, you think it might be a good idea to look to the left as I tell you that for the third time? I'm sorry. I was like, I'm sorry he's not going to bring you back from the dead if one of those 2 tractors runs you over. She was like, tractors? I was like, oh, gosh. She really didn't see them. So, man. She did exceptionally well. I'm going to call it situational awareness. Is that that's take it in the whole picture. I tried to describe that to her. Like, we were coming up on the square. We just kind of pulled off and stopped her. I was like, all right, let's talk for a second. Like, you're doing a great job. Like, you're really doing it. Your braking's good. Your turns are good. You're getting there with the turn signal. I'm not going to pretend like we've tried to parallel park yet. We'll get there eventually.
That's a good one. Yeah.
We'll get there.
You don't have to do a whole lot of that in Oxford, though, which is good.
On the square you do.
But do they? I mean, I thought they had the metered parking and the angles and.
Well, they do, but I mean, you still
just avoid.
Streets.
Yeah, you got to avoid that if you're just avoid right. The parallel parking.
You're right. So I was like we were coming up here and there's a crosswalk there. She's like, there was nobody coming. I was like, I agree, there was nobody coming, but you didn't look kind of to your left and see the bigger picture down the sidewalk to see if somebody was about to step out there. It's like. I need you to focus on the driving while also taking in everything else.
Got to have your peripheral vision. It's like a good quarterback, you got to see all your receivers at the same time. See
the entire picture, even if you're focusing on one thing. Thanks for asking. So we're good. She was excited. She did well. Now I guess we got a year to think about a vehicle.
Yeah. You got anything?
Or maybe
in mind?
she's got a year to save for a vehicle.
Right. Any used tanks around? Get like my dad, and way he joked me and brought home like a 60-something Impala. It had the curb feelers, and when you put it in reverse, it beeped. And
Did I tell you what I have my eye on for Obi?
What you got?
Now, I got a few years on this. So he's 12. He'll be 13 in November. I have my eye on a Grand Wagoneer for Obi.
You can get the wood grain, old school?
Absolutely. Yeah. Wood-paneled Grand Wagoneer. My thought is it's big, it's heavy, it's slow, and it's four-wheel drive.
It's slow.
That feels like a perfect combination for a teenage boy's first vehicle.
Yeah, safety. I had a 76 Chevy
Not to
truck.
mention, they're really cool looking.
Like I said, that 76 Chevy that I had, you couldn't go fast. You couldn't go, but it got you where you were going, and you were not getting stuck anywhere, but you weren't going to win any races, that's for sure.
Yeah. U.S. Border Patrol officials say that nearly 50 undocumented immigrants were apprehended in Mississippi during the last week of April. Partnership with Homeland Security, local law enforcement, Border Patrol New Orleans sector conducted a sting called Operation Magnolia. Arrested 48 undocumented immigrants traveling through Mississippi across I-10 in Harrison County. Those taken into custody came from Mexico, Nicaragua, Kazakhstan, Honduras, Colombia, and Guatemala, along with 3 U.S. citizens who were charged with federal crimes.
The one I would like to know how they got here is the one from Kazakhstan. Yeah, everybody else, it's like the odd man
left turn.
Yeah.
He didn't look left when he was coming into the roundabout and just ended up here.
Like Bugs Bunny said, he took a wrong turn at Albuquerque.
They were all processed for removal from the United States. 8 of the subjects are set to be prosecuted for re-entry after previous deportations. One undocumented individual was also charged with attempting to use false documents. In addition to the arrests, law enforcement picked up $104,000 in cash, multiple firearms and magazines, and other illegal contraband. This is a lot on a business card. New Orleans Sector Acting Chief Patrol Agent Adam Calderson said, if you attempt to smuggle narcotics, contraband, or illegal aliens through Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana, you will be caught, prosecuted, and put in jail. U.S. Border Patrol is committed to enforcing our nation's laws. Operation Magnolia netted 25 undocumented immigrants in Pearl back in March. Getting after it. Have you seen this from the State Department of Health? Mississippi State Health Department has responded to a report alleging a grand lack of oversight when issuing public funds to nonprofits. State Auditor Shad White reported that MSDH sent money intended to encourage the public to get tested for HIV and AIDS to nonprofits that use the funds for wasteful purposes, specifically the Immigrant Alliance for Justice and Equity, the Love Inside for Everyone, and the Love Me Unlimited, the number 4 Life,
Lordy,
are said to have been allocated $853,000 between 20 and 25. How'd they spend the money? $327.36 went to Bud Light and Corona. $2,500 on the gift cards for event attendees, and $14,000 and change on venue, food, supplies, DJ, photographer, and travel for the event called Queer Sayonara, a Pride Month event highlighting obstacles in the Latin community's LGBTQ plus ASDFJKL semi-population. Love Inside for Everyone was given $4,000 to cover rental fees, $90,000 spent with no receipts. We got more on this when we come back.
From the veteran.
Start your day right.
Good morning, America. How are you?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Going to be one of those days, Lance. Too much stuff, not enough time. Let's get you a Mississippi Lottery update, mslottery.com. Lotto America, no jackpot winner on Monday. Got a big one tonight, nearly $33 million, over $15 million in the cash value. No jackpot winner for Powerball on Monday night. $29.9 million, the estimated cash value tonight. The numbers from Monday's drawing, 16, 34, 40, 45, 66. Powerball was 19. Power play multiplier was 2. Double play numbers from Monday night, 21, 26, 28, 62, 63. The Powerball was 1.
Well, the Mega Millions, there's no jackpot winner. Friday's drawing will yield you $100 million if you win it. 45.3 mil you can take to the house. Tuesday's drawing 16.
It didn't take long for that bad boy to get from 50 to 100.
Yeah. For like 2 days, 3 days.
This new deal, yeah.
16, 17, 43, 46, 58. Those are the numbers for Tuesday, and a mega ball of 16.
The lottery is turning up the heat this May. 3 brand new scratch-off games are now available at retailers. Heat Stroke, blazing hot bucks, and red hot cash with top prizes up to $200,000. Even better, non-winning tickets can still win big. Enter them into the lottery's newest bonus promotion, Sizzlin' Summer Cash, for your shot at prizes from $500 to $25,000. We told you about this yesterday. The Powerball wins keep coming for Mississippi Lottery players. Over the weekend, a ticket sold at R&B Tobacco in Batesville matched 4 white balls in the red Powerball, winning $50,000. You can add double play for just $1, giving you a second chance to win in a separate drawing held right after Powerball. Very good stuff. You had $1 million winner.
Yeah.
Turned it into $2 million with the dollar power play option not too terribly long ago.
Pretty good return on your investment there. Put $1 down, get an extra $1 million.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'll take
Cash
that.
Pop scratch-off winner, couple of $2,500 tickets, one in Meridian to a woman on a ticket she bought at 39 Citgo, and a Bassfield woman won $2,500 on a ticket from Buckatona Grocery in... Yeah.
Beautiful Buckatona.
Beautiful Buckatona. That's your Mississippi Lottery update. Brought to you by MS Lottery. Or the website is mslottery.com. We got to finish this State Department of Health story. All right, so report from the state auditor's office, $853,000. I do think it's important to say that technically we don't think this is, at least for now, fraudulent use of the money. But it is what the auditor's office called in the report counterproductive ventures.
Yeah, I mean,
certainly could be referred to as wasteful spending. I'll tell you why in just a second. All right? So you had the Queercianera Pride Month event where they spent a bunch of money. Love Inside for Everyone was given $4,000 to cover rental fees for a nightclub said to be operated by the nonprofit's director to host monthly diva brunches. Over $90,000 with no receipts or supporting documentation was utilized to host Gay Pride Weekend in Jackson in 2023. Love Me Unlimited, the number 4 Life, was given over $140,000, which went to salaries with a requirement to hire people who identify as gender nonconforming, people with HIV, ages 17 to 34, members of the LGBTQIA plus ASDFJKL SIMI community, and or those at risk for acquiring HIV. Those at risk for acquiring HIV. During the 5-year stint in which these nonprofits received tax dollars, a grand total of 35 HIV tests were administered by the 3 groups. We're talking about a 6-year window from 2020 to 2025. All right, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Sounds like 5, actually 6 years. $853,000, 6 years. The goal of the grant was to promote getting HIV or AIDS tests. 35 total tests across the 3 organizations.
Is that bad? I'm kidding. I mean, goodness. Was that like 6 a year? 7 at most you did with all that money?
There's pretty good math.
That's brutal.
35 divided by 6 is what, 5.7? So the groups, like, in exchange for the money they were receiving, were administering like 1.8 HIV tests per year per organization. Dan Edney said they took the state auditor's findings seriously and admitted that there were lapses in how HIV/AIDS prevention funds were monitored. You think? And noted that the mistakes were unacceptable and not reflective of the state agency's mission. Said the report dealt with prior agreements with nonprofits, none of which are currently in place. Well, that's good. Glad to hear.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Good morning. Good morning to you there.
Okay, up and at 'em. Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, my daddy never wrote in the old famous country songs. Papa never stayed out raising hell with the Haggard Jones. But he raised a proud coal miner's daughter, and I'm proud to be her son. She told me, boy, I don't care if you hit it big, because you're already number one. And that's the way it goes.
Good to be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. This hour of the show is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough. And if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you are not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services, plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today. 601-206-7966. On the web, MWGEmployerServices.com. Tried to pack too much into that first hour. I'll give you a couple of quick sports headlines. The Ole Miss softball team shut out Missouri in the opening round of SEC tournament play. Brianna Lopez spun a complete game shutout. Number 18 Ole Miss defeated the 14-seed Mizzou 1-0 to advance to the second round of the tournament. They will play number 6-seed Florida today. How about ranked 4th in the country and being the 6th seed in the SEC tournament? Game is set for 4 o'clock, televised on the SEC network. The Ole Miss women's golf team is on the precipice of advancing once again to the NCAA championships. They are currently in 4th place at the NCAA Charlottesville Regional after 36 holes of play. The teams play 54 holes, and the top 5 teams advance to the NCAA championship. They're going to be at Omni La Costa out in Carlsbad, California. That starts May 16th. They, as a team, shot 6 over. They are 4 over for the championship, 7 strokes clear of the 5-team cut line. Mississippi State in even better shape on the women's side. They sit in 4th place at 9 over par, entering the final day of action at the NCAA Gold Canyon Regional. They're in Arizona. The Bulldogs are 9 strokes ahead of the projected cut line of 18 over. Auburn, who is behind Mississippi State in 5th place at 18 over par, is up 2 strokes on Cal State Fullerton. So Cal State Fullerton would miss the cut at 20 over. Mississippi College earned their 3rd straight NCAA tournament bid. Magnolia State will be well represented in the upcoming Division II softball tournament as they are set to compete for a national title after amassing a 36-17 overall record, 22-11. In Gulf South Conference play, the Choctaws earned their 3rd consecutive appearance in the annual postseason competition. They are the number 7 seed. They will take on number 2 seed St. Leo in Florida Thursday at 11 a.m. So there you go. There's your quick sports update. Good to be with you this morning. All right. Lance, have you got that video where you can play it?
Yeah, let me get this.
All right. Give you a chance to get that pulled up. We talked about this some yesterday, and I guess I teased it on Monday even. I know it's a couple of days old now, but on Sunday morning, Donald Trump sat down with Kristen Welker of Meet the Press. And this video is about 4 minutes long, but I think it's worth your time because Donald Trump hits on 3 really big topics during this interview. He's asked about the MAGA movement and whether or not it can continue without him at the head of the party. He's asked about a third term as president and also asked about who the Republican candidate will be for president if it's not Donald Trump in 3.5 years. There's some pretty good stuff here if you really listen. We'll unpack some of this with Mike Hurst, current chair of the Mississippi GOP, when he comes on starting at 7:20, and get to the big announcement from the Attorney General's office as well. But here's Donald Trump with Kristen Welker from Meet the Press on Sunday morning.
The Trump organization is selling hats that say Trump 2028.
Yeah.
Are you seriously considering a third term, Mr. President, even though it's prohibited by the Constitution? Or is this about staying politically viable?
I will say this. So many people want me to do it. Mm-hmm. I have never had requests so strong as that. But it's something that, to the best of my knowledge, you're not allowed to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's constitutional that they're not allowing you to do it or anything else, but there are many people selling the 2028 hat. But this is not something I'm looking to do. I'm looking to have 4 great years and turn it over to somebody, ideally a great Republican to carry it forward. But I think we're going to have 4 years, and I think 4 years is plenty of time to do something really spectacular.
The Constitution does prohibit it. Some of your allies are pretty serious about this, though, Mr. President. I've spoken to them. They say they are coming up with potential ways. Well, obviously, the biggest one would be a constitutional amendment.
That's because they like the job I'm doing, and it's a compliment.
Has anyone in an official capacity presented you with, sir, here are some ideas by which you could actually get a constitutional amendment?
Well, in a capacity of being a big supporter, many people have said different things, but I'm not looking at that.
You have built a political movement that has transformed the Republican Party. It's transformed the country, quite frankly.
Political movement in history, MAGA. Make America great again.
When you look to the future, Mr. President, do you think the MAGA movement can survive without you as its leader?
Yes, I do.
What gives you?
I think it's so strong, and I think we have tremendous people. I think we have a tremendous group of people. We talked about a number of them. You look at Marco, you look at J.D. Vance, who's fantastic. You look at, I could name 10, 15, 20 people right now just sitting here. No, I think we have a tremendous party. And you know what I can't name? I can't name one Democrat. I mean, I look at the Democrats, they're in total disarray. They have a new person named Crockett. I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. And they said, she's the future of the party. I said, you have to be kidding. I don't know what they're going to do. And I really believe in a two-party system. Because it's good to be challenged. It's really good to have a two-party. You know, it's good. Being challenged is okay. It keeps you sharp. I don't know what they're going to do. They have nobody. Bernie's 87 years old or something. And, you know, Biden is the worst thing that ever happened to old people because he was grossly incompetent. And I think maybe for artificial reasons. You know, he had operations and things. So maybe that's an artificial. But I know people that are unbelievably sharp, and they're older than 87. But I watch Bernie Sanders. He's a nut job, but he's still sharp. He's sharp as he's the same guy he was. He hasn't gone down. But Biden is really, he's the worst thing to happen to old people.
I know that you are only 100 days in, but as we sit here today, who do you see as your successor, Mr. President?
Well, it's far too early to say that, but I do have a vice president, and typically it would be, and JD's doing a fantastic job.
He would be at the top of the list?
It could very well be. I don't want to get involved in that. I think he's a fantastic, brilliant guy. Marco is great. There's a lot of them that are great. I also see tremendous unity. But certainly you would say that somebody's the VP. If that person is outstanding, I guess that person would have an advantage. But I think the other people would all stay in unbelievably high positions. But, it could be that he'd be challenged by somebody. We have a lot of good people in this party.
Couple of things stand out there to me. Like big picture stand out. Number one, I thought there was more depth to the answers that President Trump gave to Kristen Welker's questions than in a lot of the interviews you hear. Now, he had a couple of interjections where he did his greatest movement ever, greatest movement in history.
It's huge.
And he's going to do that, but he didn't dive off into a lot of hyperbolic stuff. She kind of drilled down on the question about a third term a little bit, but he answered that as openly and honestly as I've ever heard him answer it. No, I'm not seeking a third term as president. Yes, people have suggested their ways. It's really a compliment. And he's right. That is a compliment. If somebody's suggesting, hey, here's a way that you could be a president for a third term, it's because they believe in you. But here's the other thing that stood out to me. I tip my cap to Kristen Welker on this. And maybe it's because she thought she was getting real answers. She let the president answer. It wasn't just a constant interruption, pushing back on what he was saying. I thought that segment of the interview, and the interview was about 90 minutes long and featured about 100 questions. But to her credit, she asked good questions, and she allowed the president to answer the questions. We'll talk about some of the content, though, of his answers, when we come back with Mike Hurst, former U.S. Attorney, current chair of the Mississippi Republican Party. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venable Glass.
To be.
Wake up! Wake up! Rise and shine!
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross.
Nice early morning surprise.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome again, Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of the conversation. Don't forget the C Spire text line is open to you, 601-879-4395. The best teams know how to get even better. That's why C Spire constantly enhances their wireless, fiber internet, and business solutions for you. Visit cspire.com today. C Spire, inspired by you. Later today, Middays with Gerard Gibbert is on the road in Ellisville. You'll hear about all the incredible economic development that is happening in Jones County. They're working hard in the free state of Jones to bring more jobs and investment to Mississippi. Don't miss out. Middays with Gerard Gibbert starting at 10 this morning. Mike Hurst joins us this morning, former U.S. Attorney, current chair of the Mississippi Republican Party, looking resplendent as always. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Richard. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Happy hump day.
To you as well. Weekend is just around the corner.
It's right there.
I don't know if you heard the clip that we played before the break.
I did not.
So it was Meet the Press Sunday morning with Kristen Welker sat down for about a 90-minute interview with the president. And I played about a 4-minute clip from that, which is longer than we normally play. But I thought there was some really interesting stuff. I had two observations before we went to the break. One, I thought there was a depth to the president's answers that sometimes you don't hear from him. And I gave Kristen Welker a lot of credit because she actually let the president answer the questions.
Right.
There were three things that really stood out. She went down the road of, are you really considering a third term? People are selling Trump 2028 hats all over the place. And he answered the question as directly as I've ever heard him answer it. He said, no, we're not considering a third term. I think 4 years is plenty of time to do something great. And he said it's a huge compliment that people are saying that and buying those hats and kind of having fun with the idea of a third term. But that's the first time that I've heard him come out and directly say, no, stop. We're not trying to get a third term as president.
Is there a question there, Richard?
Well, just a general thought. I mean, because people have thrown this out and they've talked about constitutional amendments, but
right.
He went a little farther and talked about that he believes a two-party system is good because it challenges you and it keeps you in check. And there's a reason that we hold presidents to 2 terms.
Right. Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is we have a sitting president who sat with an interviewer for 90 minutes on national television, compared to our last president, and the media cover-up and the administration cover-up of the last president not being able to get in front of a camera. That's number one. The second is the people are clamoring for a third term because of all that he has done and is doing. I mean, look at how much he has done and accomplished in just 100 days. Yeah. I mean, crazy things like securing our border. Crazy things like enforcing the law for those who have violated the law. Crazy things like backing our law enforcement who put their lives on the line for us. I mean, this is incredible. It shouldn't be incredible stuff, but it is incredible stuff because of the last 4 years that we've had to deal with in the Biden administration.
Crazy things like seeing that American ships are being attacked by Houthi rebels in the Red Sea and putting an end to it in the course of a couple of weeks.
Right. And other countries taking advantage of our country and pushing back and saying enough is enough. I mean, Americans are the most hospitable, the most altruistic, the most giving people in the world. But there comes a point, Richard, where we have enough, and we have done enough for this world. But there comes a point when you are taking advantage so much, you just have to say enough is enough, and that's what this president is doing.
She asked him about the MAGA movement continuing. She pointed out that he is the leader of this movement. He said it's the greatest movement in political history, and as he is going to do. But he was quick to say that this will continue well beyond his presidency, and he singled out Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance as kind of the top of the Republican Party underneath him.
Right. And I think as a conservative Republican, you should be very excited about the up-and-coming members of our party who are going to take over the reins once President Trump's office is over. I mean, you're exactly right. Who can be against making America great again? I can't understand it. I don't understand the Democrats' current platform of, going to detention facilities and advocating for individuals who have broken our laws to be here, and again, they're advocating against our government who's only trying to enforce our laws and trying to protect American citizens' safety and American citizens' jobs. And so this Democratic Party and the things they push for, whether it be abortion, whether it be the pro-Hamas and pro-Palestinian protesters who are victimizing and demonizing individuals for their ethnicity, their background. I mean, this is exactly what this is exactly what America was built on, which is we are a colorblind society. Everyone who comes to this country has an opportunity, and I can't understand anyone who would be against that principle.
And it really, I mean, it's kind of a crazy dynamic. Some of the things that Donald Trump's administration is for are things that in the past Democrats have argued for and are now arguing against.
Right.
It feels like simply because they're Donald Trump's ideas.
That's exactly right. I mean, you can go back and look at the statements made on tariffs from people like President Obama, former Secretary of State Clinton. I mean, all these Democrats who have stated these things. But if Donald Trump says it, then all of a sudden it is the anti-gospel. It is heresy. Simply because this man is advocating a position that before they had agreed with, but now they're against.
And he brought up the point that he said, I don't know where the Democrats go from here. We've seen AOC. He talked about Bernie. It really was interesting. He said Joe Biden was the worst thing ever for old people because he was cognitively declining. Doesn't mean that all old people. He said Bernie Sanders is still sharp. He said, but he's 87. And then you have folks like AOC, who obviously is radical. And then he mentioned Crockett, the representative from Texas.
Yeah, who was just in Mississippi last week.
Oh, good.
For a commencement ceremony at Tougaloo College, a great college here in our state. But this is the same woman who said it's not a crime to be here in this country illegally. I mean, put those two things together right there. It's not a crime to be in this country legally. I would point out to the good Congresswoman from Texas that she should look up Title 8 United States Code Section 1325, which when I was a federal prosecutor, we prosecuted individuals not only for illegal reentry, which is Section 1326, but also illegal entry into this country, which is a misdemeanor at first and a felony after a second conviction. So it is a crime to come to this country. And if Democrats continue to push this narrative that, you can break our laws and there are no consequences, I hope they do continue to push that narrative because I think that's only good for us as Republicans.
We will, after the break, get into the massive arrest and fentanyl seizure that the Department of Justice announced yesterday. But before we do that, this was even more local. Last week of April, Border Patrol agents, Operation Magnolia, kind of a joint task force working on this. Nearly 50 undocumented immigrants apprehended, drugs, guns, cash in Mississippi. Talk to us about what you're seeing in our home state in terms of not only catching but prosecuting and trying to get rid of not just those who are here illegally, but those who are really a drain or a dredge on society and are here illegally in our state.
Yeah,
or passing through.
Well, and that's a big thing, passing through. I mean, we have huge corridors connecting the East Coast to the border, whether it be I-10, I-20, 55, 59. We are a major thoroughfare for these drug cartels to traffic their poison from Mexico and other countries up the East Coast. And so we saw that. I saw that when I was an assistant U.S. attorney. I saw that when I was U.S. attorney. Mm-hmm. And so I think you'll see more busts now that we have an administration who's intent on actually enforcing our laws. You'll see more busts along those major corridors. And frankly, you'll see more busts, I think, in the back roads because these drug cartels are smart. They realize real quickly that the interstates might not be the best way, and they'll start going the back roads. So, I would just ask your audience to say prayers for our sheriffs, our deputies, our local small town police departments, because I'm afraid they're going to see an uptick in more traffic through their communities as these drug cartels try to avoid the major thoroughfares.
Well, along those lines, years ago, the U.S. Attorney's Office in North Mississippi led a joint agency raid. I think it happened in Clarksdale. And, we know about drugs that are coming down I-55, making their way into the Delta and other parts of Mississippi. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's from New Orleans up to Chicago, and then you have all the way from Mexico to Atlanta up the eastern seaboard. And this goes all the way back. When I was U.S. Attorney, we had a major bust in the coast that led us all the way back to China.
Wow. Tentacles run deep. There's no question about that. Along those lines, the Sinaloa cartel perhaps crippled by an announcement that came yesterday from the Department of Justice led by now Pam Bondi. We'll talk with Mike Hurst about that coming up next. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. This segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Mayor Andrew Pearson from Woodville, Mississippi, great Woodville, Mississippi, in southwest Mississippi, says, can you please include Highway 61 for drug trafficking enforcement from the Louisiana state line through my hometown of Woodville and onward to the north? Yeah, Mayor Pearson, we were kind of talking about the major thoroughfares, but the fact of the matter is, Mike Hurst visiting with me, chair of the Mississippi Republican Party, is it's not isolated to just big major thoroughfares. Unfortunately, much of the drug trafficking is everywhere.
That's right. And sadly, when I was U.S. Attorney, we saw the human traffickers doing the same thing, whereas normally they set up in major metropolitan areas because of the population and the opportunities they have. But what they would do is hide out in our rural areas. And a lot of our rural counties and rural small towns would experience human traffickers in their backyard, which is hard to even believe, Richard. But we know in law enforcement that we saw it firsthand, and we made those arrests, and we got those folks out of our communities.
I want to let you address this. Message that we got. SCOTUS has confirmed, Supreme Court has confirmed that it's not illegal to be in the United States, not the same as the act of crossing the border. The law needs to be implemented to change remain in country legality.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to address Supreme Court precedent without having prepared. I will tell you, if you look up, as I mentioned, if you look up the United States Code, the illegality is entry into our country illegally. And that's the whole issue of why it's so important that we as a country secure our borders so that people cannot illegally enter our country.
Yeah, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around, okay, it's illegal for you to come in, but once you're here, then you're good to go.
Yeah,
like, that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, that's the whole incentive. That was the Biden administration incentivizing illegal immigration by allowing those who, if you get here illegally, you are allowed to stay until it works its way through the judicial system. And, you know, President Trump did this in his first term. He's trying to do this in his second term. If you come here illegally, we're going to ship you back. If you want asylum or any other special status, you're going to have to wait in another country because you are, by definition, illegal, period.
Yeah. We got the press release yesterday from the Justice Department, and the headline is "Largest Fentanyl Bust in DEA History. Authorities seize over 400 kilograms of fentanyl in record-shattering operation."
Right.
I won't go through all the details, but I will tell you this: when we say multi-agency operation, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Salem, Oregon, Layton, Utah, Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada, cash, guns, meth, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine. This was a big, big operation.
Yeah, it was. And it was connected to the Sinaloa cartel, which is a huge, huge drug operation. And the thing that jumped out to me, Richard, was they seized 400 kilograms of fentanyl. Now, to your listeners, that might not sound like a lot, but let me put it in context. 2 milligrams. So 5 to 7 grains of salt, 2 milligrams of fentanyl can kill a person, which means 400 kilograms, if I did the math right, can kill approximately 200 million people. 200 million people.
400 kilograms is equal to 881 pounds.
That's right. And so this is a huge thing because if you look at the overdoses in this country, I think I saw statistics, 75% of drug overdoses in this country, maybe of young people, involve fentanyl. And with the number of overdoses continuing to rise and the fentanyl continuing to pour into our country, I mean, this was a huge, huge win for the Department of Justice and, frankly, a huge win for us as a country and our people.
You know, Mike, for all of the things that Democrats have pushed back on, and it's been basically everything that has come out of President Donald Trump's mouth since he was elected, I have not seen a lot of pushback on the designation of cartels as terrorist organizations. And that designation, I mean, that's one of those things that it made a headline when it was announced, but I don't know if people recognized what that did and what that gave the United States the power to do. It really opened some doors for enforcement against the cartels by classifying them as a terrorist organization. Was that the right way to go about this from Donald Trump's perspective?
Absolutely. I think that's the first step. I love what the Department of Justice has done with this program they call Operation Take Back America. And the 3 components to Operation Take Back America is the repel of the invasion of illegal immigration, the achieving of total elimination, Richard, of drug cartels and transnational criminal organizations, and finally protecting our communities from violent criminals. I mean, again, to your point, how can anyone, Democrat, Republican, green, purple, whatever, how can you be against those three things. And I think you're right. Designating those drug cartels, finally pushing back against drug cartels and designating them as terrorist organizations, I think is a very good first step in getting them off our streets.
There appears to be a pretty good working relationship between Donald Trump and the president of Mexico. We know that drug cartels have gripped that country. And I feel like Mexico as a country and the Mexican people in particular sometimes get vilified because, like, as a whole, because of the bad actors. And we know there are a lot of bad actors. Is this administration sitting on go just waiting on word from the president of Mexico to come in and help the country of Mexico eradicate the cartels?
I don't know the answer to that. Let me check my phone. I don't think the president's called me this morning asking me that one. But what I will tell you is, yes, I think we have to help the Mexican government get their country under control. You're exactly right. The Mexican people are good, hardworking, strong people, but the pressure that they're under with these cartels and the amount of power they have, the amount of force that they have, it is really wreaking havoc in the country of Mexico. And if you don't think that affects us, having a huge border with that country, I mean, you're dead wrong.
But I feel like there are a lot of people that are more familiar with cartels and kind of the way they operate than they would have been years ago, thanks to Netflix and the Narcos series. I guess in some ways probably glorified cartel activity, but at the same time gave some historical understanding to how those have developed over time.
Yeah, well, I will say this, having been in federal law enforcement for as long as I was, and you see the evil, I mean, just absolute pure evil that is committed by these individuals in cartels. They don't care if it's a human being, they don't care if it's a woman, they don't care if it's a child. If it gets in between them and selling drugs and making money and gaining more power, it doesn't matter. And they'll do anything to do that. And that type of evil is what needs to be eradicated.
With your former U.S. attorney hat on, can you explain at all what's going on at the federal level with the Epstein list? It's been talked about so very much. I saw an interview with a Republican senator. I think he was with Benny Johnson yesterday, where he was talking about the deep state and why it is that perhaps this list is not being published the way Donald Trump said it would be, the way Pam Bondi said it would be, the way Kash Patel said it would be. I mean, do you believe that list in its entirety will ever see the light of day?
I think it will, actually. But
Really?
What I can say is right now, when you're still in the middle of prosecutions, you're still in the middle of investigations, I would be very hesitant, even though the public is clamoring for it and the juicy gossip columns want to see it, I would be very hesitant to release it right now just because I would not want to do anything that would interfere with those investigations and those prosecutions. And once you release that, I think you're going to have a hard time with defense counsel who are defending those individuals. I think you're going to have a hard time prosecuting those cases. So I wouldn't want to do anything that interferes with the administration of justice there.
Is the deep state a real thing?
Yes.
Take me farther down that road.
Well, I mean, look, as long as humans are involved in any type of entity, there's going to be mischief. That's just we're sinful creatures. And especially in government where you have people who may not agree with whatever administration is in charge, you're going to have those individuals fighting back however they can with whatever enterprise and whatever resources they have. And so, yes, absolutely. You see, especially if you look back in Trump's first administration, you saw the slow rolling of his programs, his initiatives that he was trying to implement, and unfortunately, I think you see that continuing into this administration. Now we're only 100 days in. I mean, if you think about how much has been accomplished in 100 days, it's pretty incredible. But there's no doubt in my mind that there are individuals within the federal government who are actively trying to stop whatever the president is trying to do.
So that's a nameless, faceless political apparatus.
No, it's not nameless and faceless. I think more Elon Musk digs in. I think more Doge digs in. I think more that you see the government finding the waste and fraud and abuse, especially from the last administration. I think you'll start seeing faces and names come out.
It's going to be interesting to see. So
Absolutely.
you don't buy into the idea that all of that evidence related to Epstein is being shredded in some dark room and burned and will never see the light of day?
I don't know the answer to that. I can't say one way or the other, but what I'm hopeful of, maybe I'm naive, but what I'm hopeful of is that it's simply not being shared right now in order to protect the prosecutions.
Mike Hurst, chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party, former U.S. attorney. Always appreciate your time and your insight.
Thanks, Richard. Great to see you, buddy.
You as well. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Glad to be with you on the radio, online, and on the go. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venable Glass.
And now, Mornings with Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Thanks to Mike Hurst for joining us this morning, former U.S. attorney, chair of the Mississippi GOP. Covered a lot of ground with him and appreciate his time, as always. President Trump announced yesterday, meeting with reporters and the Prime Minister from Canada, Mark Carney, that the United States is going to stop bombing Yemen immediately because the Yemenis and the Houthi rebels, have conceded defeat. Here was Donald Trump.
We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've been announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will.
All right, so they don't want to fight anymore, which is a fancy way of saying they wave the white flag. They let us know we're out.
Didn't they fire off a rocket or something yesterday or today after that announcement? Like, I don't know if they hit anything, but
if that happened, I missed that news. That strikes me as a really, really bad idea.
Yeah,
You've seen some images of the destruction from the bombing that was happening by the United States. So what's going on here, right? Why is it that we're concerned with the Houthis, with Yemen, a world away? Since November of 2023, so for over a year and a half, the Houthis have launched dozens of missile and drone attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea, which has caused a disruption in global trade. They initially targeted ships with direct or indirect links to Israel, but later expanded their targets to include ships linked to the United States and the United Kingdom, and even ships whose owners and operators have vessels visiting Israeli ports. So from our perspective, the perspective of the United States, it's one thing when you are attacking ships that are tied to other countries. We cannot like it, but it doesn't necessarily, unless it is a direct ally, doesn't necessarily compel us to jump into the fray. But when you start attacking ships that have a U.S. flag on them, a British flag on them, or are affiliated with U.S. and British companies, price of poker goes up. This started again in November of 2023, which means the previous administration had a full year before the election in which they could have done something to stop it. They didn't. The Houthis initially claimed that their actions were in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. They've also cited the U.S. and U.K. strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen as a reason for targeting ships linked to those countries. The Houthi attacks have led to significant disruptions in global trade, increased shipping costs, and they forced major shipping companies to completely reroute their ships around the Red Sea, again, driving up costs and causing delays. But ultimately, when this terrorist organization decided that it was a good idea to attack United States ships or British ships in the Red Sea, Trump administration said, nope, not going to happen. And yes, we have the infamous signal gate and the communication of what was going to happen with Pete Hegseth and other members of that command, but this has been a wildly successful campaign over the last, 2 weeks to a month? Clearly, the Houthis not very smart. When you rattle the cage of the tiger long enough, you are running the risk of getting bit. And this administration unleashed hell on the Houthi rebels. And yesterday they said, no mas. This is not fighting Russia or fighting China, any other major superpower. Yes, Yemen has ties to terrorist organizations in much of the Middle East, but nobody's staking a future world war on the defense of Yemen. There are acronyms that many have used to describe this. FAFO has been one of those acronyms that has floated around. This wasn't so much a flex from the United States as it was no, you're not going to attack our people, our businesses without repercussions. I was looking at a post that I saw. Said, why are we bombing people half a world away? What have they done to hurt us? Well, we just kind of outlined what they'd done to hurt us. And sometimes flexing strength on a lesser adversary that thinks they can just get away with things because they're not a major player is a signal to the rest of the world that we're not playing. The United States will not put up with this. A clear victory for United States military. 8 o'clock hour coming up. News is next.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
8 o'clock hour, mornings with Richard Cross. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Thanks for starting the day this way. Middle of the week, weekend around the corner. Glad to have you along for the ride. You can join the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. Are you looking for game-changing technology? You need C Spire on your team. 5G wireless, fiber home internet, and business IT solutions built as tough as your defense. Learn more at cspire.com. C Spire, inspired by you. One reminder, Mother's Day is this weekend. And Carter Jewelers in Jackson has their annual balloon pop sale offering 70% off and more, located in downtown Jackson since 1849 on the corner of State and High Streets and at the Pemberton Plaza in Vicksburg. Our next guest will be celebrating Mother's Day this weekend.
Yes, and my husband's listening, so I hope he wrote down those details about the jewelry.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. I have promised that I will at least once a day between now and the end of the week mention that Mother's Day is coming up as a public service announcement to dads and sons and brothers and all of that good stuff. Dr. Katherine Pannel joins us this morning. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good to be with you. This is May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and certainly we've talked in the past with you. That's certainly a big part of what you do as medical director at Right Track Medical Group, a DO, and also working with the Mississippi Psychiatric Association. What does this month mean in terms of awareness and recognition and advocacy for mental health issues?
So, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'd like to say it's a month for heightened awareness. I want us to all be mental health aware every month of the year, but this is just a time of heightened awareness, just a time to have the conversations, break the silence, fight stigma, and educate and promote policy to help those suffering with mental illness.
I think we've talked in the past about what you used the word stigma just a second ago. What not too terribly long ago was something that was faux pas to talk about, right? We don't talk about this. We whisper about it in dark corners, maybe, or we just keep it to ourselves. Much of that stigma has been torn down, ripped away, and it hasn't happened accidentally. There have been a lot of people that have worked very, very hard to make that. Where are we today, from your perspective, in terms of not only being aware, but being willing to talk about mental health issues?
You know, you're right. I think I personally saw a major shift in stigma and mental health and talking about mental health when we were in the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. I think that we talked about it more because everybody was struggling with their mental health during that time, and it's just continued to grow. I know our generation is terrible about talking about it still. I'm proud of our youth. I know you have a daughter my daughter's age, and they are so much more open about talking about mental health. You know, they did that USC Speak Your Mind Challenge, so they're doing a great job of talking about it. We still have a long way to go in the South. It's still a bless your heart kind of deal, but things are improving. I mean, we just have to keep having the conversations, make it normal, everyday conversations, because mental health is health. It's just as important as getting treatment for hypertension or diabetes. Mental health is health, and it's just as important as physical health.
What does that encompass, Catherine, when you're talking about mental health issues? It feels like it can be a pretty wide array of things.
Yeah, and we see close to 60 million people suffering from mental illness, whether that be depression, anxiety, substance use issues. 1 in 5 Americans suffer from mental illness. Our youth, it's 1 in 6, but sadly only 30% will even reach out to get treatment. And that's where we really have to normalize these conversations and make people aware that seeking treatment, it's not a weakness. It's actually a strength that you have seen, that you've got things and areas that you need to work on, and you're going to better yourself and seek treatment for it. And that's okay. It is okay not to be okay.
Medically, is substance abuse classified as a mental health issue, or is that kind of they're cousins? It's almost like an ancillary thing that goes along with somebody dealing with substance abuse. No,
substance use disorders are actually in the psychiatric DSM manual. It is considered a mental illness. It's a mental disease, and we need to treat it like that too. It's not just a choice. Like, it is an actual disease of the mind. But it is also very common to have both mental illness, like depression and anxiety, in addition to substance use disorder. It's usually a dual diagnosis. They usually go hand in hand, because when you're sad or depressed or anxious, sometimes we self-medicate with substances to feel better. And so, yeah, they do oftentimes stay together as opposed to being separate entities.
And we're talking about alcoholism and drug use and pill use, which I guess gets lumped in with drug use. But,
sure.
But those are the most common things that we're describing, right?
That's right. And those are our poor coping skills. That's why, even at an early age, most mental illness presents before the age of 14. And we've got to really get our children more mental health aware and teach them healthy coping skills, ways to deal with their sadness and their anxiety, so that when they're presented with things like pills or alcohol, they won't turn to those to cope, and will have healthy coping mechanisms in place to deal with it.
We know that different people handle substances differently, right? There are some people who seem to be predisposed sure. to alcoholism in particular. What's the difference between, I had a bad day, it's been a long day at week, let's have a cocktail and just relax, versus I don't know how to handle the pressure of my job as soon as I get home, and sometimes before I get home, I've got a drink?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we all deal with stress. There's no such world in which there's no stress. And so you've got to figure out ways to deal with stress every day. And a lot of that's in prevention, organization, planning. But, it goes from, I'm having a drink just because I had a bad day, to something that you're noticing that's happening every day, that you can't get to sleep at night, or you can't get through the rest of the day without having that drink, when it starts to impair relationships or job performance. When you're drinking more often than you're not, when you have to have a drink to not have symptoms of withdrawal, that's when it's gone too far. Really, when it starts impacting activities of daily living, that's when you need to step back and evaluate things and contemplate maybe getting into treatment.
We're a few years into the legality of medical marijuana in the state of Mississippi. There are lots of reasons that can be prescribed by doctors. Sometimes it's pain related. Sometimes it's lots of other reasons. Are there doctors that are prescribing medical marijuana for mental health related issues?
There are a few mental health diagnoses. I think one of them is even dementia. Sometimes patients get really agitated, and I know that is one of the indications that you can use medical marijuana to help with their agitation. It also kind of stimulates their appetite too. But there are no, in the laws of Mississippi, that depression and anxiety do not fall under diagnoses that medical marijuana is approved to be used as a treatment for. The data and the research just isn't there for medical marijuana in the psychiatric realm. In fact, a lot of the data that we are seeing, just patients that have used it, it actually worsens mental illness. We see a lot of kids with psychotic breaks due to not medical marijuana, but marijuana. And, there's rebound anxiety. It's just right now the research is not there. I do encourage ongoing research for it because there may be a use for it, but right now there's not really a use for it.
Visiting with Dr. Katherine Pannel. She's a DO, medical director at Right Track Medical Group, and works legislatively with the Mississippi Psychiatric Association. Just a couple of minutes left. You said earlier that when it comes to the stigma, that young people seem to be better about talking about issues that they've got going on. What's the conversation that parents need to be having with children, whether it's, 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and that's a pretty significant age difference there. How early do the conversations need to start, and what do those conversations look like?
The conversations are never too early to have. You do want to kind of modify how you have that conversation. Yes. A conversation with an 8-year-old is a lot different than a conversation with a 14-year-old. With an 8-year-old, you want to be the parent that notices that they've got a change in their behavior, that they're more sad, or they're having nightmares, not sleeping, not eating, and just really it's all about open conversation. And letting your children know that you're there to listen, not to judge, and that it's okay not to be okay. With our older kids, teens, you can approach them with the subject of suicide. I know a lot of parents are so hesitant because they think they're putting that idea in their kid's mind. They're not. Our kids are smart. They have a world of information in their phone. They know what it is. So just having those conversations that, hey, if you're sad or you're anxious or you don't like yourself, there's nothing that we can't get through together. I can help you get help. If I can't provide it, I can get you resources, but there's nothing too big, too bad that would ever warrant you taking your life.
We can't survive without these.
That's right.
Without our phones. We can't get past them. How much of the mental health related issues that you see in young people is a direct result of?
It's really huge. I'm glad that could be a whole other segment. We ought to do one. It is huge. And there are a lot of positives to smartphones. It does foster some good connections with others, but there's also everything that people put out it's not real life. It's perfection. And that's just really hard for teens to understand and attain that perfection is, or to understand that perfection is not attainable and that what you're seeing on social media is not real life.
Yeah. It can be sometimes a dark and a scary place.
Right.
This is a conversation that certainly want to continue with you in the future. Thanks
Absolutely.
so much for coming in
Thank
this
you
morning.
for having me.
Dr. Katherine Pannel, she is the medical director at Right Track Medical Group, talking about mental health awareness in the month of May.
From the Venable Glass.
A deep dive into the news and debates driving the day. All on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
She's so beautiful now. She doesn't wear her shoes. She never likes to choose. She got wonderful eyes and the risky mouth. When I asked her before, she says she's holding out.
Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Thanks to Dr. Katherine Pannel for coming in. Talking a little bit about mental health, as May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Phrase that she used several times. It's one that has become common. The "it's okay to not be okay." Maybe more than that. If you find yourself in a bad spot, mentally, emotionally, physically, and it is causing thoughts to creep in your head about self-worth and whether or not it just would be better if you're not here anymore. Please, begging you, reach out to someone that cares about you and just talk. Just talk. Don't allow yourself to go farther down that road. There's a story out of North Mississippi in the last few days, and I'm not going to get into any specifics with regard to it. Affected a lot of people. And from the outside looking in, it's one of those situations where you're like, how could this have happened? Everybody loved this person, but you never know what's going on inside someone's head. And so for those who are dealing with the pain and the anguish and the questions about why someone took their own life and what you could have done otherwise, please don't blame yourself. But if you find yourself in a dark place and you're asking yourself those questions, please reach out to someone. Reach out to someone, because however bad mentally you think it is inside your head with those demons talking to you, it's not worth that. It's not worth the pain that you leave behind. And it's not even about other people. It's just about your own self-worth. And even if things are bad, you have self-worth. You have value. And there are people that care about you. So, please, if you find yourself in a spot where it just feels like the only option is for you to take your own life, I'm not put these words in anybody else's mouth. I'm begging you, find someone to talk to. And also, if you're not in that situation, if you think you're in a good place, try to be aware of those who are around you. Because you never know, again, what somebody might be dealing with when their doors are closed, when their lights are off, when they're by themselves. Just try to be a good friend. And if you feel like you got somebody that needs to talk, make time to talk to them. Make time to tell them that you love them. Make time to give them a hug and say, hey, we'll get through this together. You can join us on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. Have you kept up at all with the news out of India and Pakistan? Or as Barack Obama used to say, Pakistan. I don't know why that drove me crazy. If not, you certainly can be forgiven, right? I mean, it's a world away and there's a lot going on. Yesterday, India fired missiles into Pakistani-controlled territory in multiple locations, killing at least 8 people, including a child. And the leadership in Pakistan is calling it an act of war. India said that it struck infrastructure used by militants linked to last month's massacre of tourists in the Indian-controlled portion of Kashmir. At least 3 civilians were also killed in Indian-controlled Kashmir by Pakistani shelling, the Indian Army said in a statement. Tensions have been heightened between the 2 nuclear-armed neighbors since the attack. India has blamed Pakistan for backing the attack. Islamabad has denied the accusation. And now you hear statements from leaders. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif condemned Wednesday's airstrikes and said that, quote, the deceitful enemy has carried out cowardly attacks, close quote. and that his country would retaliate. Sharif said, Pakistan has every right to give a robust response to this act of war imposed by India, and a strong response is indeed being given. Sharif has convened a meeting of the National Security Committee for Wednesday morning. Michael Kugelman is an analyst of South Asia. And he tried to kind of put in some context what's going on here. He said it's one of the highest intensity strikes from India on its rival in years, and Pakistan's response would, quote, surely pack a punch as well, close quote. Went on to say these are two strong militaries that even with nuclear weapons as a deterrent are not afraid to deploy sizable levels of conventional military force against each other. The escalation risks are real, and they could well increase, and quickly.
Well, I mean, it's increasing quickly now with Sharif, the Pakistani prime minister, stating they shot down 5 Indian aircraft after the Indian aircraft had released their payload. So 5 craft down. It seems like it's escalating pretty quickly.
Yeah, it does. So what's the background?
The British, you know, in all that area back when they carved it all up, and it's been going on since then.
Again, India is blaming Pakistan for backing the gunman behind the April 22nd killing of 26 people. Most of them were Indian Hindu tourists. India has described it as a terror attack that was backed by Pakistan, or at least not denounced by Pakistan. And Islamabad says, no, that's not the case. Both countries have expelled diplomats and nationals, got to get out, and closed their borders and shuttered airspace. India has suspended a critical water-sharing treaty with Pakistan. After an initial wave of condemnations of the attack on tourists, world leaders have called for both sides to simmer down. International pressure piling up in New Delhi, where India's capital is, and Islamabad as well. By the way, it's not the first time that these countries have fought. In fact, they've fought 2 of their 3 wars over the disputed Kashmir. Senior officials from the United States, China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia have urged both sides to exercise restraint. Iran has offered to mediate. All right, so let's pause there for a second. The United States, which is in a trade war with China and is at best concerned about China in their quest for world domination. Russia, who is involved in a war with Ukraine right now and oscillates between being at odds with the current United States administration and willing to listen, and Saudi Arabia, one of the most oil-rich countries in the world, who is trying to look more modern than it has ever looked before, are all saying the exact same thing: simmer down. And when Iran offers to be the mediator between India and Pakistan, you know, okay, this is bad. Iran, not a place that minds seeing bombs blow up, missiles light up the sky. So what's the concern? I think the answer's simple here. Both Pakistan and India are nuclear states. And both are willing to kind of fly off the handle at the other and fire shots and retaliate, and then retaliate to the retaliation, and then retaliate to the retaliation of the original. Yeah, you get the idea. Instability and an itchy trigger finger, not a great combination. We'll keep an eye on what's going on between India and Pakistan, or Pakistan. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. We are back after this.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Silence from the cooking pot mixing up with the air. Little California voodoo, Carolyn feeling his brother.
Back with you. Big Supreme Court ruling yesterday for the Trump administration. Supreme Court allowed Donald Trump's administration to enforce a ban on transgender people in the military, though legal challenges are proceeding. The court acted in the dispute over a policy that presumptively disqualifies transgender people from military service and could lead to the expulsion of experienced, decorated officers. The court's 3 liberal justices said that they would have kept the policy on hold. Neither the justices in the majority nor those dissenting explained their votes. That's not uncommon in emergency appeal situations. That's where it is. There was a statement last night from Pete Hegseth. I'm going to opt not to play it for you because of words that we try to steer away from on the radio. You know, dirty words. If you have a little kid in the car, we don't want to spoil the car ride this morning. So I'm not going to play that, but basically, Pete Hegseth said the era of putting people in positions of leadership and power in the military who are not capable of handling those roles is over. And there are a lot of people that kind of rallied around that statement from Pete Hegseth. We were talking earlier this morning with Mike Hurst, and I asked him about the Epstein list and some of what's going on. Representative James Comer yesterday was on a podcast, and he said that he doesn't think that the Epstein list exists anymore. Pam Bondi was asked about that this morning. Here's the question, which is kind of low and hard to hear, and her response. I'm just going to pause there for a second. The question was, James Comer said yesterday all the Epstein files are missing. Can you comment on that?
No, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
Pam Bondi says, I'm just going to call him myself, and we'll find out what's going on. She was a little incredulous about the question and said that there are thousands of videos that the FBI is having to go through. The question, though, is not unreasonable. And James Comer saying what he said in that podcast with Benny Johnson yesterday is not unreasonable, and here's why. Here's why. When this president, Donald Trump, was campaigning, and when he brought in Pam Bondi to run justice, and he brought in Kash Patel to run the FBI, and he brought in Pete Hegseth to run DOD, they all said we're going to release the Epstein files. Mike Hurst's perspective was a little bit different this morning. He said, look, as a former United States prosecutor, U.S. attorney prosecuting difficult cases, I wouldn't want the list released because it could affect investigations and prosecutions. Using something like that list of names as campaign rhetoric and then not following through is at best disingenuine, and disingenuous is what I was trying to say. And at worst, just wrong. Why do we want the names? Is it so TMZ can have a field day? Is it so podcasts have got content? Or do you trust this administration, the DOJ, the FBI, and other agencies, to be building cases against people on that list? We've all heard the names. Bill Clinton's name, prominent. There's been speculation, Bill Gates' name, other government officials, other celebrities. Are you going to prosecute these people? If the answer is yes, okay. You're building the case. Don't publish the list. But there better be prosecutions. Because if there aren't going to be, just release the names. Mose says, why do we want the names? So we can see if the DOJ is actually prosecuting the guilty. Yeah, that's one possibility. Do you have current officials that are publicly elected whose names are on that list? Would it shock you? We were sure quick to throw names out and cancel people during the Me Too movement. Why are we holding the names back now? Simple answer as to why it hasn't been released. The list isn't just a list of Democrats. It involves people of both parties and people who are still in power. It's a very real possibility. They aren't going to prosecute, so at least expose them. If they're not going to prosecute, yes, I agree, expose them. If this is about building a case, then I understand why you're holding back on that. And it's not like you're trying to figure out whether or not to put Jeffrey Epstein in jail. Now, that was taken care of a long time ago. And a lot of the names on the list are most relieved that situation was taken care of.
Well, I mean,
a while ago.
Yeah, would die in 2019. I mean, and we're talking in 2025, almost 6 years later, about whether there's going to be prosecution of a list. I wouldn't hold your breath. But, that's just my opinion. I mean, 6 years and you can't make a case when you have a list of people. I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time believing much is going to come out of a list. But, if it does, it does. But 6 years in and you haven't heard anything, yeah. Other than speculation of who's on it. And that's all it is.
Mm-hmm. Whole thing's disgusting.
Yeah, if you really had the appetite to do anything, you'd have done something by now, is my point.
I mean, the thing, though, Lance, is, what a depraved place in which we live. And maybe, there's even some naivete in what I'm saying here. But to think that people with all the means in the world were frolicking with young girls who were there against their will, probably through means of trafficking, for sexual pleasure, for a bunch of rich dudes.
I mean, trafficking is not just for sex. It's also holding someone in a position. You're in a position of power, and they hold you in confidence of that, and you keep that over them, and you move them around and keep them in the house and do it. So, I mean, human trafficking is such a disgusting ordeal that we're dealing with, and it's much more like an onion with the layers than anyone would imagine.
Yeah.
And each case seems to be very case sensitive, too.
I mean, between the Epstein list and the Diddy trial.
Oh, man.
What a bunch of sickos.
Well, you go back a few years and there was another R. Kelly, right? I mean, he had some.
So we're talking about Hollywood / the music industry. We're talking about the highest levels of government and some of the most successful business tycoons of our day expected to be involved, believed to have been involved in unthinkable sexual perversions, among other things. And then the cover-up after the fact. It's funny how the witnesses, not ha-ha funny, funny how the witnesses, though, related to Epstein, keep turning up dead. Including a note from the most recent victim who said, I am not suicidal. If something happens to me, you need to know that it was fishy. Paraphrasing there. Are the United States and China any closer to a trade deal? Talk about that when we come back.
From the Morning Mississippi, you're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Jam-packed Wednesday morning. We are at the end of the road on this edition of Mornings with Richard Cross. Here you go. Presented without comment.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime, which is why they're so frustrated.
Wait, hold on. Run that by me one more time. Let me just make sure I heard that right.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime, which is why.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Jasmine Crockett. Give her a round of applause. Driving in your car this morning, well done, Jasmine. Good explanation.
Yeah, yes. Entering the United States without authorization is a crime, specifically 8 U.S. Code 1325. So, glad she knows, her job.
Just one more time, so you didn't mishear it.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime.
It's not a criminal. It's not a crime. It's not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally, she said. Last night at the University of Washington, oh, look who's back. Antifa. Are we back to occupying buildings in the Pacific Northwest and not really doing much about it? Antifa protesters occupied the brand new engineering building on the campus of the University of Washington to protest Israel. They lit dumpster fires, created blockades, and chanted, "Death to the police." Police made about 30 arrests. Seattle has created this environment. Big cities in the Pacific Northwest have created this environment that empowers domestic terrorist groups to feel emboldened and empowered to take over buildings on college campuses, to start fires, to destroy property. Of those 30 who were arrested, what do you think happens to them next?
I would guess not much.
You think George Soros had anything to do with the district attorneys that are in place in places like Seattle and Portland and
you wonder, why they keep protesting in those areas? Because they know they can and get off.
Why don't you try that in Starkville, Hattiesburg, or Oxford?
That's kind of where I'm going with
Woo, brother.
They're not going to try that, where they know that they could actually do some hard time.
You might have a little vigilante justice to start things off before law enforcement could get there to do what they need to do. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, along with U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer, headed tomorrow to Switzerland. Not on a vacation. They are going to meet with Beijing's lead economic representative, China's foreign ministry Rep. He Lifeng. He's the vice premier and leader of Xi Jinping's he's vice premier and Xi Jinping's economic czar.
Is he the new guy? You remember the trade guy we don't know what happened to him, but he's retired to some island somewhere, but they just, the trade expert they replaced. I didn't know if this was the same guy.
You're saying some beach somewhere?
Yeah. He's retired in comfort. You know how it works over there.
This is not just a one-off meeting. They are scheduled to be there May 9th through the 12th and hold discussions with American officials. A ministry spokesman for China says that the United States requested the talks. Treasury Department confirmed Bessent's travel plans to Switzerland to meet with Chinese officials in a press release yesterday. Separate release from the office of the U.S. Trade Representative said Greer would be traveling there. Bessent said, I look forward to productive talks as we work towards rebalancing the international economic system toward better serving the interests of the United States. Earlier this week, Bessent said the United States has not yet engaged with China on trade. On Saturday and Sunday, we will agree what we're going to talk about, Bessent said. My sense is that this will be about de-escalation, not about the big trade deal. So I got to calm it down before you get to the spot where you can actually negotiate a deal going forward. And India, not related to the India-Pakistan kerfuffle, but related to trade relationship with the United States and India, India has offered a 0-for-0 trade situation. We'll see where that goes. Whew, packed in a lot this morning. Thanks for being with us. We'll do it again tomorrow. For Lance, I'm Richard. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Have a great Wednesday.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.